you. Who else could it be but your man Louie? Yeah.
Who else could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Seattle Seahawks in what turned out to be one hell of a football game, which I think most of us, if you're a true football fan and have been watching this league closely, you thought this was going to be a hell of a football game. Contrasting styles, Chiefs. Again, for the second time in 3 weeks, the Chiefs were going up against a team that really wanted to run the football. They went up against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago at home in a game that they were able to pull out in overtime. But the Ravens really want to pound the rock and play some defense. Same thing applies here with the Seattle Seahawks. This time it was on the road. This time they weren't able to get the victory, but make no mistake about it, offensively, the Chiefs did what they have done all season long, that score points and look impressive and sometimes look spectacular in doing so with Patrick Mahomes, which at this point, can we just go ahead and give him the MVP trophy? I heard some people kind of beating the drum and maybe trying to gain some momentum for Phillip Rivers. Quiet that down, all right? You know, Chris Collinsworth at times can be talking out of the side of his neck. Tonight he tried to throw Russell Wilson's name. You know, he's one of those big prisoner of the moment guys where everything is the best and the latest is the greatest for him. If he sees something, this guy's going in the Hall of Fame. Like tonight he said Bobby Wagner's going to the Hall of Fame. And I'm like, bro, Bobby Wagner has had a hell of a career. And if it continues going in the direction that it's going in right now, he may be a Hall of Famer. But he's only played in the league, what, 6 years, maybe 7 max? Like, what are you talking about? Chill, bro, chill. But in any event, he said throw Russell Wilson's name in the... Russell Wilson had 80 yards passing last week in a win versus the Vikings, or 2 weeks ago, whenever that game was on Monday Night Football. You can't win the MVP trophy, and you had a game with 80 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards, 70, something like that passing? Are you crazy? He's not in the MVP discussion, but he's played damn good football this year. But they've done some things to make it a lot easier on him, including running the football like hell this year, and that opens up play action fake. And what I can tell you about Russell Wilson, say what you want, there are a couple of things that you have to associate with Russell Wilson. One, the dude is a gamer and a winner. When the game's on the line, it isn't always pretty, but he makes winning plays, whether it's him having to use his legs for a huge scramble like he did in that game. And I just poo-pooed him for only having like 71 yards passing against the Minnesota Vikings on a Monday night. But in the most crucial juncture of that game, he also had about a 30-yard scramble to really put that game on ice, essentially, and help his team win. He makes those plays once or twice a game, and that's why this guy is already a Super Bowl champion, been to 2, should have won 2, and is a guy that consistently wins in this league. But he's not the MVP of the 2018 NFL season. That distinction belongs to the guy that was opposite of him in this game, in Patrick Mahomes, making a couple more eye-popping plays, including the touchdown pass to Charkandrick West. Are you kidding me? At the end of the play, he even had to look at his hand like, what in the hell did you just do? Like, the guy is amazing. No play is safe. No play is ever over. Even when he's running towards the sidelines and it looks like he's going to run out of bounds, you're never quite sure if he's going out of bounds or not. You can't let if you're a defender, you got to take the 15-yard penalty because you got to blast his ass by the sidelines. You can never ease up like the Chargers did last week and get a touchdown thrown on your head. That pass to Demarcus Robinson for the touchdown that cut it to a 3-point game, or it got them in a position to go for 2 to cut it to a 3-point game. That was a ridiculous throw. That was utterly ridiculous. And that's a throw that only a handful of guys in this league can make. And Mahomes being probably the best and most apt to do it, along with Aaron Rodgers. It's ridiculous what this guy's done this year. I told you all along that Breeze was in the conversation. At one point, I had Breeze winning it. To me, it's Mahomes, and it can't be anybody else at this point. You can throw all the names you want. Aaron Donald just set the record for the most sacks by an interior defensive lineman today with 18.5. He's still got one more game, and he probably won't play next week if I had to guess. Well, they still need him. I take that back because the Bears are still there. And And if they lose next week and the Bears win, the Bears will get the bye week. So I assume Aaron Donald never, ever trust a man with 2 first names will play next week. He's not going to get to Strahan's 22.5 sacks record, but 18.5, still got a chance to get to 20, put that mark for an interior defensive lineman up at a nice round number like 20, which nobody will get to, I imagine, from the defensive tackle position. Although Chris Jones making a very strong case that in a couple of years, he may be able to do something crazy like hit the 20 sack mark from the defensive tackle position. But in any event, I threw Aaron Donald in there. At one point, Jared Goff was in there. He's faded since we really tried to give him a little bit of notoriety. So he's out of the discussion. Donald, to me, is still in that discussion, but he's not going to win. Drew Brees is there. Phillip Rivers is there. And I think Mahomes is there. But to me, Rivers of the last couple of games hasn't been the sharpest. Did have a great come-from-behind drive late against the Chiefs, but he was not great versus the Ravens last week. And you look at Mahomes, even in the losses, they've got 4 losses to the Chiefs this season. And in all 4 of them, this guy has been spectacular in every single one of those defeats. All of the wins, he's been outstanding for the most part. I think it's pretty much because even in some of the defeats, there were moments in those games where you said, wow, Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. Now, conversely, with the Saints and Drew Brees, there have been some pretty poor performances from Brees, including the most notable, that Thursday night loss to the Cowboys on the road. He was awful in that game, was Drew Brees. So I think right now you're MVP of the league. In a league where there isn't a dominant football team, where anyone can win the Super Bowl this year, the 1 seed to the 6 seed in either conference can get it done, I'd go with Patrick Mahomes. That being said, big win for the Seahawks. That's why I said if you're in the NFC right now and you really want to give yourself the best chance to advance out of Wild Card Weekend, I'm talking to the Bears, I'm talking to the Cowboys, you don't want any parts of the Seahawks. I get it that the Bears and the Cowboys have probably the 2 best defenses in all of the NFC. Granted, I understand that. Both can stop the run. I did watch the 49ers have a little bit of success running the ball against the Bears today, but the Bears found a way to win. It was not pretty. And as a matter of fact, the 49ers had every opportunity to steal that game, but they're the 49ers. They're a 4-win team for a reason, and they found a way to throw that game away and allow the Bears to get out of there with a win. Despite that performance, though, by the Bears, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league, so are the Cowboys. So you would think that a Seahawks team that is pretty much one-dimensional, if you can stop their run game or at least slow it down, that takes away the play action fake that really hurts Russell Wilson in this offense, really hurts them in general. You'd like to think that you've got a great chance of beating them if you can slow down their rushing attack, but it's easier said than done. They're much like the Ravens. To me, they're the Ravens of the NFC where, look, you know what you're getting. They're going to line up and they're going to run it 30-some-odd times in the course of the game. Your job is to stop them or at least limit them and not allow them to run for over 200 yards like they did tonight. You've got to find a way to limit the amount of damage that is done on the ground in the football game. And a lot of times it's just tough to do. It's just tough to ask your defense to line up and stop a team from ramming it down your throat the way the Seahawks tend to do week in and week out. The fact that they dedicate a 315-pound offensive tackle as their 3rd tight end tells you everything you need to know about their dedication to running the football on a weekly basis. They did it again tonight. And the thing that makes them scary is that off of that run comes play action fake. And Russell Wilson is one of the best play action fake quarterbacks in this league. You saw the throw late to Tyler Lockett down the sideline, a thing of beauty. Dropped it out of the sky. You couldn't have placed that football any better than he did. I mean, that was so feathery soft. It was like drugstore cotton. It was the throw of the game. If you're looking at it from a Seattle Seahawks standpoint, that throw pretty much put this game on ice. Doug Baldwin, they made the plays down the stretch. For as many plays as the Chiefs made to stay in this game and give themselves a chance, the Seahawks made more, and especially when they counted the most and when it mattered the most, the throw by Wilson to Lockett was a huge throw. The catch by Baldwin to pretty much seal this thing up, that one-handed grab, ridiculous. They made the big plays down the stretch when they had to be made, and that was really the difference in this game. These quarterbacks went tit for tat in this game. Both of them had similar numbers. Both of them had 3 touchdown passes. Both of them had a similar completion percentage. Both of them were right around 300 yards passing. Both of them made extraordinary plays, both with their legs and their arm. Both of these guys were outstanding. Neither defense really could stop the other from doing what it is they wanted to do. The Seahawks defensively, they did a good job early on in this game of limiting the Kansas City Chiefs. Same thing could be said about the Chiefs defense with the Seahawks offense. At halftime, this was a low-scoring 14-10 affair. And honestly speaking, if you want to know what I thought was the turning point of this game, it was the Damian Williams fumble. I felt like the Chiefs were firmly in control of this game. Even though the score didn't reflect that at 10-7, I felt like they were right where they needed to be. The Seahawks had no momentum. The crowd wasn't really hyping into the game at that point because the Chiefs were controlling the pace of the game. But that fumble deep in their own territory gave the Seahawks a spark that I thought they never relinquished in this game. They took the lead after that fumble, 14-10, took that lead into halftime. And really in the second half, I thought they were phenomenal on the offensive side of the football. And that fumble to me was the turning point. It was the start of the Seahawks really getting their footing and their traction on the offensive side of the football in this game. And then Russell Wilson from there took off. Chris Carson, outstanding. Didn't even realize he was that close to 1,000 yards. He went over a G tonight, and he's been so good. I talked about this on a podcast earlier this year, and if you haven't had a chance, check out the Louie T Network podcast, available on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Music Play, TuneIn, and of course the website louietnetwork.net. But I talked about on a podcast earlier in the season that they really didn't need to draft a running back. They could have spent that pick on an elite pass rusher, on another wide receiver. They could have done so many different things with that draft pick. Maybe an offensive lineman. Anyway, they didn't need another running back. Rashad Penny has been good at times this season and has shown you at times some flashes like that cutback run versus the Vikings on Monday Night Football, that he has some of that ability that they saw in him to make him a first-round pick. But at the end of the day, they didn't need him at the running back position. Their running back position is so ridiculously stacked, especially when you add in J.D. McKissick, who came back a couple of weeks ago. They got an abundance of riches at the running back position. Carson is over a G. You've got Mike Davis, who's over 400 yards rushing. You've got Penny over 300 yards rushing. And then Russell Wilson himself is over 300 yards rushing. Not to mention McKissick just came back, and he offers you something as a receiver out of the backfield. They didn't need another running back is essentially what I'm trying to say. But we'll see what happens with that pick and how they are able to utilize him. But Carson is the guy. And we saw that from him last year before the injury, that he had the ability to be the guy. And maybe the Seahawks didn't trust their running backs to stay healthy. Going all the way back to C.J. Prosise, a guy that can never really stay healthy. Carson has had his issues with injuries. Same thing with Mike Davis. So I guess they felt like we can't trust any of these backs in particular to stay healthy. Hence the selection of Rashad Penny in the first round. But still, I've loved Chris Carson's game. I've talked about him. I thought he was outstanding in the Dallas Cowboys win earlier, a team that you may see in the first round of the playoffs after clinching the wild card, or one of the wild cards in the NFC tonight with this win. You probably most likely will see the Dallas Cowboys in wild card weekend, and this time it'll be on the road at Dallas. But this team has so much success running the football. Carson, a huge part of the reason why he's so tough to bring down. A lot of yards after contact. You saw that tonight. His ability to make guys miss, run through arm tackles, and get every single yard that the play is blocked for, and then some. He runs with a physical attitude that kind of embodies this Seattle Seahawks offense. And he was outstanding tonight, eclipsing 100 yards and 1,000 yards on the season with a very proficient night. Now, this offensive line of the Seahawks has caught in a lot of flack over the years for not being one headed up by a big-time name. They haven't spent a ton of big-time draft picks. The one guy that they did spend a first-round pick on, in Jermaine Ifedi, has turned out to really be a disappointment for them. They were hoping he would be a tackle. He ends up being a guard. He picks up a lot of penalties. There's a lot of issues there. So it hasn't worked out for them when they even did decide to spend a first-round pick on an offensive lineman. But the Dwayne Brown trade last year worked out well for them. And that offensive line, to me, is very solid. And they're getting the job done. And the commitment to running the football has really turned the tide in the favor of the Seahawks this year, and you saw it again in tonight's game. I talked about this earlier in the season, that this is one of the best coaching jobs. I know a lot of people, including Chris Collinsworth, who I already told you is a prisoner of the moment. He's said numerous times this season that this is Pete Carroll's best job, coaching job of his career. It's up there. I don't know if I would say it's the best, because I feel like it's a lot harder when you've got a lot of personalities and you're managing not just your players, but personalities on and off the field. It can become a big task and a chore. What you have to understand about being a head coach is it's not all about X's and O's, because most of these guys that get these coaching jobs, they know the game of football. You know, sometimes on Sundays it may not seem like it, but they know the game of football. Where you really get the true test of a head coach, to me, it's three components. One, how do you manage the game on game day? Challenges, time management, those types of things, timeouts. How do you manage the game? All right, that's a big thing for me. Another thing is delegating the responsibility of your football team to your assistant coaches. You can't do everything. All right, as a head coach, you've got to trust somebody. If you're an offensive-minded guy, maybe you want to call plays. That's fine. All right, but maybe you've got another guy overseeing what you're doing that has intimate knowledge of what you're doing. So if you need to step away for a second and say, hey, I've got to deal with some things, I need you to call my plays, or whatever the case may be, you've got to trust someone to do that. Andy Reid, for instance, he's calling plays, but he's also got Eric Bieniemy calling plays into the huddle, or he's also got Eric Bieniemy in there helping him game plan. Andy Reid is always, and there are legendary stories of Andy Reid pretty much getting all of his offensive coaches in a room and say, hey, what do you guys have? Any innovative plays, anything you guys think would work this week? And then implementing it on that week's game plan and into the game. So Andy Reid is always giving his offensive coaches and really his coaches in general some opportunity to have a voice, to have some power. And as a head coach, how you delegate that power and responsibility also goes a long way in determining how good of a coach you are. Got to trust guys on defense, offense, special teams. And if they say, hey, look, coach, I watched film all week. I think we can pull off a fake punt right here at this position on the field. And as a coach, this goes into game management. Is this the right time? We saw the Steelers. I thought Mike Tomlin made a mistake at that point of the game with your defense playing as well as they were to fake a punt and give the Saints half of the field essentially to have to travel. When they've struggled to travel the length of the field, you cut the field in half and say, hey, all you got to do is go 50 yards to get a touchdown. Thought that was an epic mistake in a game that the Steelers desperately needed. I thought Mike Tomlin let his team down in that particular instance. That's part of being a head coach, but delegating is another thing. And then the third thing for me as a head coach is managing personalities, all right? Look, like I said, every coach that's in this league knows football. So I just forget about that for a second. You got to manage personalities. You got 53 different personalities in your locker room. And every single one of them probably thinks they're an alpha male. All right? Every single one of them at some point was the man, whether it was high school, whether it was college, whether it was JUCO, whatever the case may be. He was the man at some point, and he thinks he's the man still. It's your job to get those egos to mesh. All right? It's your job to be able to calm a guy down when he's losing it. It's your job when a guy is frustrated or a guy is not happy. It's your job to get everybody on one accord. And so Pete Carroll had to deal with that with Dick Sherman, who got thrown out of a game today for getting in a fight. He had to do that with Cam Chancellor. He had to do that with Earl Thomas. We saw Earl Thomas flick him off and the rest of the Seahawks organization when he got carted off early in the season against Arizona on the road when he tore his knee up. because they didn't give him a contract extension, because he felt like they took an opportunity for him to make money away from him. Bottom line is, you're dealing with those kind of alpha males. He had to deal with Marshawn Lynch, all of these guys at the same time. I'd like to think that there was a better coaching job somewhere in there than right now, but I tell you what, with what he's done, how he's revamped this football team, how he started from scratch essentially and built them back up from the ground up, because last year was rough, and everybody, including myself, I'm guilty, thought that this was going to be a step back year for the Seattle Seahawks, and it's been anything but. And I've got to give Pete Carroll a ton of credit for what he's done with this football team. They're young, they're hungry again, and I thought they've done a great job of kind of figuring out what they are and getting back to Seattle Seahawks football. Look, when they were winning, when they were at their peak, they ran the football, they played defense, and Russell Wilson took shots off of play action fake, off of the run being successful. They've gotten back to that. At one point, I thought they got away from that. They tried to make Russell Wilson the feature of their offense. They wanted to chuck it deep. They wanted him to throw the football 36, 44, 47 times. That's not what this team is all about. This team is about running the football and Russell Wilson minimizing the mistakes, maximizing opportunities for shot plays down the field. And when they happen, taking advantage of them. And that's what they did tonight, and that's what they've done pretty much all season long, and that's why the Seattle Seahawks are going to the playoffs this season. And they're not done yet. They could win 10 games this season, and even if they decide to rest their starters because they really have nothing to play for at this point, they're pretty much locked in as the number 5 seed in the NFC playoffs. Even if they decided to rest their guys next week, I still think they can beat the Arizona Cardinals at home. So, and reports are that they're going to fire Steve Wilkes, or the Arizona Cardinals, which I talked about on the podcast, so I'm not going to elaborate on that too much. But this was a big win for them. And you know what tonight also showed me? Probably my biggest takeaway from tonight's game was that they, in a shootout, were able to outlast a team that's been explosive and dynamic this year. The Chiefs scored 31. That's enough to win on most weeks in this league, all right? I know this has been an offensive explosion this year, and teams are scoring points at an astronomical rate and amount, but 31 on most weeks in this league is enough to win. It wasn't enough tonight. Why? Because Seattle was able to muster 38. That was impressive, because I'm still not sure Seattle is a team capable of scoring 38 week in and week out, but the Chiefs aren't good defensively, and you were able to take it to them and score 38 points. And that, I wanted to see if they were going to be able to take advantage of a defense that is lackluster, that is subpar. And they were able to go out and take advantage of a very lackluster Kansas City Chiefs defense. And when they had to make plays, they were able to make plays. They responded. Every time the Chiefs responded and made a play to get this game back within striking distance, the Seahawks answered. And that's what I wanted to see. They went toe-to-toe with an offensive juggernaut, and they came out on top. And that's big, because they're going to need that moving forward. They're going to have to play sound football like they did tonight, not turn it over against a Dallas Cowboys team or a Bears team that is going to play top-notch elite defense, and really going to try to make this Seattle Seahawks team one-dimensional. They may have to win the game like they did on Monday night versus the Vikings a couple of weeks ago, where you're going to have to grind out a low-scoring affair. Don't let the final score in that game fool you of 21-7. That game was 6-0, and it was a Bobby Wagner blocked field goal that should have been flagged for leveraging. Should have been flagged for leveraging, and they threw the flag and then picked it up. That game was 6-0 for 3.5 quarters. So they may have to win a game like that against another one of those sloppy, tough, hard-hitting, low-scoring affairs on the road in either Chicago or in Dallas in Wild Card Weekend. But if the game goes in another direction and they got to outscore somebody, say they're able to upset somebody on the road, and the next game that they have on the schedule is on the road at L.A. in the divisional round, they may have to, and they know them, that's family business, they may have to get in a shootout like they did tonight, and they'll be a little bit more equipped to do so after taking down a team like the Chiefs. If you're Kansas City, I told you that the Chargers were going to lose last week. I told you that this division was yours to win. You're going to beat the Raiders next week. So I told you, don't fret. You're going to take care of business either in week 16 or 17. Unfortunately, you didn't take care of business tonight, but you're going to take care of business next week, and you're going to win the division. You're going to remain the #1 seed in the AFC, and the AFC playoffs are going to have to come through Arrowhead. Hasn't been the best of luck for you at Arrowhead in the playoffs over the last decade plus, but at some point that streak has to stop. No time like the present. We'll see what happens for you next week, but the biggest things from this game, Tyreek Hill went down with an injury. He did come back in the game, but you need him healthy if you're going to make any kind of a playoff push. Damian Williams continues to impress. I've always liked Damian Williams. I think he's going to be outstanding for you guys, but you did have another injury to Spencer Ware, who left the game. You're going to have to figure out some things. Charkandrick West came in and gave you a little bit of a spark, caught a touchdown pass tonight, so you'll be fine at the running back position. None of those guys are Kareem Hunt. But I don't want to continue to harp on that. He's not coming back, so I don't want to continue to harp on the fact that none of these guys are Kareem Hunt. We've already said that. We've already stated that. We already know that to be a truth. We just got to move on from that point. But where you really need to focus is on defense. Kendall Fuller, hopefully he'll be back for you at some point with the surgery that he just had on his hand. Bottom line is, defensively, if you aren't able to stop the run, I think that's going to be what is going to be your undoing if you don't clean it up. If you can't stop the run consistently, because I don't worry about you in passing, obvious passing situations. When a team on 3rd and 9 has to throw the football, I trust that Chris Jones and 5-0 Justin Houston or 5-5 D Ford, one of these guys will get to the quarterback. Tonight, Bob Sutton uncharacteristically felt like blitzing, which is rare for him. He generally likes to drop 8 and rush 3 and be really conservative. Well, tonight, he sent the dogs. That was actually fun to watch from him. The results probably weren't as to his liking, but he turned the dogs loose tonight, which is rare for him. Bottom line is, you're going to have to find a way to stop the run better. And if you can't, you're going to probably have another early exit from the postseason. So between now and the divisional round, when you play again, because you're going to take down the Raiders next week, between now and the divisional round, you've got to figure out a way to stop the run better. Because whomever you play, that's going to be their biggest way to victory is, hey, let's pound the rock against these guys. The best way to stop Kansas City is to keep their offense on the sidelines. Control time of possession, keep them off the field, like Baltimore did, all right? Like Seattle did for much of the first half and even into the second half of this game. It's to run the football. Control time of possession. And keep Mahomes and company on the sidelines. You got to stop the run. Because I think you can get after the quarterback in obvious passing situations. Secondary is very suspect. Got a lot of injuries back there. You're relying on some young guys at the cornerback position. And there's a lot of mixed match parts in that secondary right now. And there's really nothing you can do about that. It is what it is. Bottom line is, you're going to need to stop the run. You didn't do a good enough job of it tonight, and you haven't done a good enough job this entire season. And if you're going to win in the postseason, you're going to have to do a better job of stopping the run. Mahomes and his offense, they're ridiculous. Harrison Butker was good tonight. Special teams has been good for you for a while now. Had a big return late to give you a chance to stay in this game. Your whole team, for the most part, is dynamic, except for the defensive side of the football. Got to clean that up. And if you don't win, you know why. You know why. Last thing I'll say about this game, how about the drop kicking of Michael Dixon? Look, bottom line is, I wasn't happy that my punter was left off the Pro Bowl. And, I don't really give a shit about the Pro Bowl, to be honest with you. It really doesn't make me one bit of difference who goes, who doesn't go. But my punter actually deserved to go this year. All right, but watching Dixon, man, I remember the fake punt versus Detroit where he just pretty much took it upon himself. Hey, they're going to turn around and leave me alone. I'm just going to run it. And then him drop kicking tonight, he probably deserves to go. He had the highest gross and net of any punter in the league this year. And then for him to step up with Janikowski going down and drop kick it too. The guy's been really good this year. So I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, one more thing before we get to your comments that I need to mention. Not doing a Monday Night Football overtime video tomorrow. Okay, there will be no broadcast tomorrow as I will be hitting the sack early preparing for my Christmas trip. Me and the family are packing our things and going on a road trip to Georgia. So there will be no Monday Night Football overtime. So for those of you who are going to sneak out of this stream early before we get to the end, normally I save my pleasantries and well wishes for the end of the show. I'm going to go ahead and get it out now while I have all of you here. Just want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll see you before the New Year, but I just feel like it's necessary to say that now. Anyway, just in case I don't have your ear before the New Year, enjoy your Christmas. Spend it with the ones you love. Enjoy the time off of work, even if it's only a day. Enjoy it. Be festive, be merry, and share it with the ones you love. I'm going to enjoy my break, and I ask that you do the exact same thing. There'll be plenty of basketball on Christmas Day. There'll be a ton of college football. These bowl games are really about to ramp up. The ones that you actually care to see are about to come on. Not the Kraft macaroni and cheese bowl, not the Belk bowl, but bowls you actually give a damn to see are about to take place. So be on the lookout for those as well. But I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to all of you guys and gals out there. Can't thank you enough for all that you do for me throughout the course of the year in participating, in donating, not just your hard-earned funds, but your time and your energy. You don't have to be here. It's after midnight on the East Coast, and some of you are on the East Coast, and yet you're still here chopping it up with me. So I really appreciate you guys a lot, and Merry Christmas to you and yours this holiday season. That being said, let's get to your comments before we get out of here. Chuck Shart says, I accidentally sharted on my wife watching this game. Yikes. Hank Midas says, all the Texans had to do was win, but now the Eagles are alive for another week. That was a wild and crazy game. The Texans, look, defensively, they have not looked sharp the last 2 weeks. I thought they let the Jets move the football on them. The Eagles, Nicholas Foles had damn near 500 yards passing on their ass. They couldn't get a stop when they needed to. Deshaun Watson pulled magic out of his hat. Down 13, he rips off 14 unanswered to give them a 1-point lead. And they allow, or was it a 1-point lead, and they allowed the Eagles to go right down the field and get in the field goal range and beat them. Shame on the Texans, but that was a hell of a game by the Eagles. And I will tell you right now, I will eat this crow, because 3 weeks ago after the Eagles beat us on Monday Night Football, I said, or 4 weeks ago now, because I said that they may beat the Cowboys, but they didn't. I said they're not going to beat the Rams and they're not going to beat the Texans. They may beat one of them. They're not going to beat both of them. Well, they beat both of them. They deserve to be where they are right now as the only team left in the hunt in the NFC playoffs. And they're going to beat the Redskins in Week 17. The question is, are the Vikings going to lose to the Bears at home? We'll see what happens. That's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of games with playoff implications, including the Sunday night game, Titans-Colts next week for win or go home purposes to get in as a wild card. That should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a very entertaining Week 17 in the National Football League. I got Munson says, can't remember a season where the playoffs are right around the corner and we can sit here tonight and make an argument for about 6 teams to win it all. I told you the NFL has never, well, I won't say never. The NFL hasn't been this wide open in quite some time, for sure. Like, honestly speaking, I think that you could argue for 4 teams in either conference winning the entire thing, and I wouldn't bat an eye, all right? Vincent Coe says, there we go again. People need to put some respect on primetime Seahawks. Go Hawks, yes. I meant to mention that as well because I didn't think you were going to win this game. I picked the Chiefs to win this game, and I know better. I know that the Seahawks on primetime at home, not just the Seahawks on primetime, the Seahawks on primetime at home, because you lost on primetime this season earlier on the road at Chicago, and you looked really bad in doing so. But at home, you're 3-0 this year on primetime, if I'm not mistaken. Minnesota, this one, and Green Bay are the three that I can remember. You may have had another game on primetime at home, but those are the three that come to mind. Green Bay on a Thursday night, Vikings on a Monday night, and this game tonight. All at home, all wins, and you look good in every one of those games. Even though you weren't that sharp offensively against the Vikings, you were dominant defensively that night. So, yeah, you're right. People need to put some respect on the Seahawks name when they're at home on prime time for sure. Hashtag RG3 hashtag says, only spot ain't safe next week is the Ravens, Vikings, and Colts. It's going to be a fun weekend of football for sure. I got Munson says, tonight Russell vaults to number 2 in my book for MVP. I don't agree. I don't think Russell Wilson is number 2 in the MVP. I still think it's Drew Brees. And I'd even say that Aaron Donald probably deserves to be 3rd. You could argue for Russell being 3rd or 4th in there. But for me, it's still Mahomes 1, Brees 2. I'd put Aaron Donald 3, and then Russell Wilson would be 4. But I got Munson says, tonight Russell vaults to number 2 in my book for MVP. Slight nod over Brees. Awesome to see Chris Carson staying healthy. His attitude defines their offense, reminiscent to beast mode. I agree with just about everything you said except for your MVP voting. I don't see how Mahomes isn't the MVP of the league. I just don't. He's going to lead the league most likely in passing yards. He's going to lead the league most likely in touchdown passes. His team is probably going to have the most wins in the league, or at least up there. They may not have more than the Saints when it's all said and done, but they're going to be right up there. His team's going to have the number 1 seed. I just don't see how Mahomes isn't the guy if you're talking MVP this season. Chuck Sharp says, I'm telling you that the Steelers won't make the playoffs. Stranger things have happened, and with the way the Browns are playing, the Ravens aren't safe. I'm just telling you right now, they've got a chip on their shoulder. They think that they can beat anybody right now. They're playing with an abundance of confidence. It would not shock me, and you know that's family business, it would not shock me if the Cleveland Browns went to Baltimore and beat the Ravens, and the Steelers are going to beat the Bengals, and that is the way that the Ravens don't get in and the Steelers do. It wouldn't shock me. But right now, as it's constituted, you're probably right. You're probably right. Let's see. A bunch of comments got skipped, so I'm going back to the top. Chuck Sharp sees, you see anyone playing spoiler next week? I just gave you the one that I think has a great chance to do it. There are a lot of teams. The Redskins have a chance to play spoiler. The Bears, they're not really playing spoiler. They're in the playoffs themselves. When you think of spoiler, you think of teams that aren't in the mix, that can beat a team that has playoff hopes. The Redskins come to mind. So do the Browns. I think the Browns are the one team that you got to look out for. They're the one that I think really can F some shit up and really are in a great position to do exactly that. Michael Thompson says, the battle of the escape artists, they make defenders look silly and inept. Spot on. I mean, both of those guys were ridiculous in and out of the pocket tonight. And some of the plays, throws, runs, scrambles, escapes, etc. were just off the charts tonight. The degree of difficulty from what they did tonight, it's on a scale of 1 to 10 and 11, and they made it look like a 3. But that's how good those two are in terms of athletes and how good they are as quarterbacks as well. Hank Midas says, New England has the easiest division. I can't name a decent starter from that division since Brady became the starter way back when. That's why they win the division every year. That's why it's one of the most frustrating divisions in all of football, because New England's run over the B&B winning factory stretch has been aided by a poor division. You know, if they had more competition in their division, New England wouldn't have been to 7 straight AFC East or AFC championship games and wouldn't have been to the Super Bowl 9 times in the Brady and Belichick era and wouldn't have won 5 Super Bowls right now. All right. But because there are so many bad teams in that division, the way for them to get to the Super Bowl is always paved with a first round bye. And generally speaking, it's usually paved with home games throughout, home field advantage throughout. Not going to be the case this year, but they're still going to get a first round bye because the Texans vomited all over themselves today. Mark Wahlberg says, my Patriots aren't getting another first round bye. He said, my Patriots are getting another first round bye, but it wasn't pretty. Nope, it wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, and it was a dub. Most importantly, you're going to get a home game coming off the bye, and that's going to help you probably get to another AFC championship game. Unfortunately, you're going to get to another AFC championship game in a season where I'm not sure you deserve to get to the AFC championship game. I'm not sure you do. But even coming off the bye, with this Josh Gordon thing, you might really be in some trouble. You know, depending on who you play, you could be in some serious trouble. Ali Side says, Lou is so, he said, so is anyone trying to win the Super Bowl? No team is looking good. It just looks like last year all over again. I think there are teams that are trying to win the Super Bowl. I just think that there isn't a dominant team. That's the difference this year. Mark Wahlberg says, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski ain't looking the same. You think the Patriots can still go on a playoff run? Absolutely. Anytime you got the B&B winning factory, all bets are off once playoff time starts. But Brady isn't looking the same because he doesn't have any weapons. Remember how bad the offense looked earlier in the season when Brady didn't have Edelman yet because he was suspended. Gronk was not Gronk at that time. There was no Gordon yet, and the running back position was still in peril. Remember how bad Brady looked early in the season? Remember that loss against the Lions on a Sunday night? We were like, whoa. And I told you, don't panic, don't fret. The Patriots will be back. But remember how bad they looked? They're not at that point because Edelman is around and they still got Hogan and all these other guys. They'll figure it out. But it's just not the same. Now, I can tell you this much. They can run the football. Sony Michel went over 100 yards today against a damn good Bills defense. That's to me, that's the difference maker. That's the caveat that's going to help the Patriots potentially win this year and get to the Super Bowl again is their ability to run the football. They can run it. And if Sony Michel is healthy, they can run the football still. Reese says, what's going on, Lou? What a football game that was. Games like that are why we love football. Amen. Craig Smith says, no go on this one, Lustradamus. LOL. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean on that one. But I would just laugh because I don't know if you're telling me I was wrong or I don't know. You might be talking about me saying that the Chiefs are still going to win the division. I don't know which one you're talking about. But anyway, Netzel Toy says, despite injuries and how much I want to believe in Baldwin, I'm just not sure if you pay him older and injuries. I think Baldwin is just, he to me is a core Seahawk. Like, he can't go anywhere, and he's not going anywhere. Colts fan says, I told you the Steelers would miss the playoffs and was flat out wrong about the Ravens, who are legit. Well, I'm not writing off the Steelers. I told you guys I wasn't confident that the Steelers were going to win. I told you I didn't think they would win in New Orleans, but I said they're going to still find a way in the playoffs. So I'm sticking to that. Until they don't make it, I'm sticking with that. But I pretty much called everything the last couple of weeks. I told you the Ravens would beat the Chargers. I told you the Steelers would beat the Patriots. I pretty much got us to this point. I told you that was going to be a shootout football game and that the Steelers would come up on the short end of the stick. And they did, but I'm still confident that they're gonna find a way in. The Browns, I think they got one more big win in them, and they can really upset this whole apple cart with a win and turn things on its head. So I'm not going to concede anything quite yet. Colts fans, speaking of which, I told you don't overlook the Giants and start talking about the Titans. You almost slipped up on the damn banana peel today. I got Munson says, here goes Skip. on Twitter talking shit about Mahomes lost the MVP to Breeze tonight. I don't really give a shit about what he's talking about. Colts fan says, how about my Colts and how about my clutch QB? Yeah, he was clutch down the stretch, but he had to be clutch because you tried to give it up. Your defense was trash today. Vincent Cole says, can you see Shaq Griffin developing into a player like Sherman? What do you think of his development so far? I like Shaq Griffin. He's no Dick Sherman. I don't think he has the temperament of a Dick Sherman. You know, Dick Sherman always thought that he was overlooked, always thought he was a playmaker. I see Shaq Griffin as a guy with more physical tools than that of a Dick Sherman. He's not as long, but he's faster than he is. I think he's got better agility than that of Dick Sherman, but Sherman to me has better hands, and he's more of a dog than that of Shaq Griffin. But I like Shaq Griffin. I told you that last year as a rookie. I was impressed with Shaq Griffin, and he hasn't done anything to change my mind this year. I think he's going to be a really quality football player. Reese says, Pat Mahomes was born to throw a football. Colts fan says, I feel like we're a very dangerous threat if we can get into the postseason, especially because we could face the Texans in a wild card who we know how to beat. Got to get there first. Hank Midas says, Seahawks, Bears, and Chargers, Colts, or Colts, Chargers are the teams to watch for in the playoffs. Craig Smith says, I'm all good with the 5th seed. We steal souls on the road. L.A. is nobody's home. Hashtag boat gang. I told you that yesterday. I said those exact words in a different way, but the exact same message was delivered by me on the telecast yesterday. Redskins fan says, I have a feeling we're going to spoil the Eagles season next week like in 2014. Do you get that feeling? No. No, I do not. Enrique Valencia says, yeah, I agree with you, Lou. Wilson can't even be in the discussion for MVP while not having more than 3,400 yards passing this season. Look, I love Russell Wilson just as much as the next man. He is not the MVP of this league this season. I don't even think he is really in the discussion before at least 3 other guys. So, look, the MVP has always been and always will be subjective. So everyone's going to have their opinions. Russell Wilson, to me, not really in the discussion of MVP this season. The Black Albie says, you said the Pigeons would lose against either the Rams or the Texans. Mari opened the envelope and revealed that, my good sir, was a bold-faced lie. Shaking my head. I know I already said that. I apologize to the Eagles. Goddamn old St. Nick during Christmas time, bringing Christmas cheer to all Eagles fans everywhere. This shit is sickening, man. He need to go sit his ass down somewhere and chill the hell out. He was outstanding today. If you didn't watch that game, god damn it, Nicholas Foles was balling today. My goodness. The 20th Mike says, what a day of football, Louie, man. Did Russell Wilson outplay Patrick Mahomes? I thought they played to a stalemate. Both of them were outstanding in this game. I really feel that way. Chuck Sharp says, this season has gone by too fast. It always does. Reese says, Lou, I saw a report that the Bucs are considering retaining Dirk and his staff. I saw that too, and I thought of you. You're the first person I thought of. You buying it if that happens? I don't know what I'll do. I don't think he's going to be retained. I think that there was a sentiment that if they finished up the season strong, he could stick around. They were pathetic today against the Cowboys. They couldn't get out of their own way. They had like 19 delay of game penalties. Like, that's all coaching and quarterback. He's gone. I wouldn't buy that whatsoever. I think he's gone. Gregory Lightbody says, do you think the Seahawks can beat the Cowboys in the playoffs? Didn't they beat them already once this season? I get it that was at home earlier in the season. Yeah, they can beat the Cowboys. Absolutely they can. Ricky L says, which team out of the wild card possible teams is most scary? If you're looking, I'll give you one for each conference. For me, in the AFC, I'll give you 2 in the AFC. Both wild card teams. I really think the Colts are going to beat the Titans. The Colts and the Chargers, super scary. I don't want any parts of either one of those teams if I'm in the AFC, period. But you got to play them. In the NFC, nobody wants the Philadelphia Eagles to get into the playoffs. I'm just telling you this right now. You do not want these dudes to get in. Don't let them in. All right? Nobody's afraid of the Minnesota Vikings. All right? But if you F around and you let the Eagles in, you're going to regret it. I'm just telling you, they're going to F some shit up. They may not win it again, But they taking 1 or 2 teams down with them before they go. Don't let the Eagles in. I'm just telling you right now. Don't do it. The 20th Mike says, why do they keep showing Patrick Mahomes' reaction when he's about to lose? Because what they do is they pan to the most popular players. So what they do. He's not the only player that they do that with. Reese says, you are absolutely the best person to ask this, Lou. Do you think Brian Kelly could be a good NFL coach, and do you think he wants to coach in the NFL? So on Brian Kelly, I do not think he has the temperament to coach grown men. I think he is right where he needs to be coaching young adults. All right, you get in the league and you try to handle adults the way that he handles these kids, and somebody's gonna pop off and be ready to slap his ass. All right, he's a very fiery coach, and you can get away with that with young kids. Okay, you can get away with those guys that are fresh out of high school, very impressionable. You can get away with that. Kelly is a cool cat when he wants to be. When you're winning, shit is sweet. He's great. You see him posting on IG and on Twitter, and he's taking pictures with the players. That shit is cool. But when shit isn't going right, he is an asshole. All right? And I just don't know if his type of coaching is suited for the NFL. So I would say no. And honestly speaking, if I'm a college coach, unless I have a huge ego and I really want to see if I can make it at the biggest stage there is in the NFL. If I've got a great job like Kelly does at Notre Dame, and he's made it to the playoffs this year, so you know he's safe job-wise, security-wise at Notre Dame. Like, you know, people talking about Nick Saban and wanting to throw a bunch of money at him. I'm not leaving Alabama if I'm Nick Saban. I'm not leaving Clemson if I'm Dabo Swinney. I'm not leaving Notre Dame if I'm Brian Kelly. If I've got one of these big-time jobs in college football, I'm not leaving. Period. Not leaving. FBG Tony says, this Seahawks team is mad scary. That run game is ridiculous. You said they are the Ravens of the NFC. Unlike the Ravens, Seattle actually has a pass game. Yes, but unlike the Ravens, their defense isn't as dominant. You saw that tonight. The Ravens played this same Chiefs team, except they played them on the road at Kansas City, and they really bogged down that Chiefs offense. It took a miracle Mahomes 4th and 9, back across his body, up for grabs pass to Tyreek Hill to help them get that game to overtime and ultimately win it, whereas they moved the football up and down the field against this Seahawks defense tonight. So, again, the Ravens have something that the Seahawks don't, and the Seahawks have something that the Ravens potentially don't. But they are very similar to one another, are the Seahawks and the Ravens. Chuck Sharp says, you think Josh Rosen is the worst QB out of this year's draft class? If you're just going off of this year, yeah, but his team around him is pretty trash, and you can't evaluate these quarterbacks after 1 year. You know, if we evaluated Ryan Leaf after his rookie season, we would have thought Ryan Leaf might have been better than Peyton Manning. All right, you can't go off of rookie seasons. Got to give these guys time. But right now, Josh Rosen, by far and away, has had the worst rookie season of any of the first-round picks. FBG Tony says, Chargers Saints Super Bowl 53. I'm not buying that one, FBG, but we'll see. Ree says, Lou, I just want to take a moment to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. Same to you, Ree. Same to you, brother. Garrett Buckmaster says, do you think the Rams will struggle with the Niners? I'm going to tell you right now, the Niners are playing inspired football. And although they lost today, I watched that game against the Bears. They had every opportunity to win. The only thing I will say is that they're not playing at home this week. It seems like the 49ers have been home for the last 10 weeks of the season. All of these games that they've won against Seattle, against Denver, they beat somebody else, or it was very competitive in that game this week against the Bears. All of them shits was at home. I'm like, God damn, how many home games could you possibly have? Now, they're going on the road in week 17 against the Rams. They're going to fight, but it's family business. You know how that goes, but they're not going to win. Skin Fans All Day says, I thank the Lord this season is over. Sometimes it bees like that, man. Stevie D says, when the Chiefs have played the better teams in the league, they have lost. Might be an early exit if they run into a hot team in the playoffs. Facts. I don't disagree with that statement at all. We got 4 minutes left. Chuck Sharp says, you see the Vikings losing to the Bears next week? I do. I really do. That's why it's so tough that the Redskins lost yesterday, because I really thought They could have had a win-and-in situation because I really think the Bears are going to because the Bears are going to have something to play for. You know, if the Rams don't get it done, the Bears have a chance to get a number 2 seed in the first round bye. And so they're going to go out and try to beat the Vikings. And I think defenses like the Bears are going to give the Vikings fits. Enrique Valencia says, can't wait for next Sunday. Win, and we're in. By the way, is there another quarterback you would want down 1 score with the game on the line? Then Luck, man, is so clutch. He's been so good, you know, late in games. I don't know, man. That's tough. Right now, looking at some of these quarterbacks, man, there's a lot of clutch dudes in the league. Like Mahomes is pretty damn clutch. We watched him on a Monday night versus Denver when they had to have it, take his team down the field. We watched him with the game on the line versus the Ravens do it. We've watched Mahomes be pretty clutch this year, man. There's a lot of clutch quarterbacks. You know, I watched Aaron Rodgers against it. I know it's the Jets. I know you're not playing for much, but Rodgers was super clutch today, man. Like we watched Aaron Rodgers clutch against the Bears on one leg in week 1. We watched Rodgers clutch against the 49ers when they had no business beating the 49ers. There's some clutch quarterbacks, man. Like, that's a great discussion to have, though. I might have it on my podcast one day. Ricky L says, I lost my fantasy game to Pat Mahomes. Just had to check it down to Damian Williams on that last drive, shaking my head. And Baldwin went off on me. Yikes. That's a tough one, man. FBG Tony says, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Have mad respect and appreciation for you and your content. You're a huge influence on me, and I thank you. Enjoy the holidays, bro. Same to you, man. Really appreciate you and all that you do to support the movement. And I really appreciate you, FBG, man. So, Tony, have a Merry Christmas, man. You and yours, man. Definitely. Big time. Hank Midas says, only downside for Seattle is their kicker. Yeah, Seabass been tripping this year, too, man. For real. Chuck Sharks also says, I hope we don't get a Seahawks versus Cowboys wild card matchup. I'd much rather see Vikings, Cowboys, and Seahawks versus Bears. I wouldn't because I don't think the Vikings can beat the Cowboys. I think the Seahawks can beat the Cowboys. So, we'll see. Vincent Cole says, happy holidays, Lou. It's been a great year and thankful for your great content on this channel. I'm learning a lot of football knowledge watching your channel. Let's go Lab Room fam. Appreciate that, man, Vincent. I really do. No doubt about it, man. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you and yours, bruh. Redskin fan says, will the Seahawks be dangerous in the playoffs? Absolutely. They play defense for the most part. They can run the football, and they hit big shots down the field. That's a recipe for disaster against teams that have trouble stopping the run. You know, that's a double whammy. You give it up on the ground and then give up shots down the field because you have to respect the run, overcommit to it, and now Russell Wilson is throwing it to Tyler Lockett. And you saw the amount of success they've had this year, perfect passer rating, including that bomb down the sidelines at the end of the game to really pretty much put the nail in the coffin. So, yeah, they're a dangerous team for sure. FBG Tony says, if the Steelers don't get in, will there be changes in Pittsburgh, like a slight retooling of the roster or a coaching change? I sure hope not. I think that would be foolish in my opinion. I don't think Mike Tomlin is going anywhere. We know the roster will be retooled to some degree. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell will not be there next year. But I don't see any major changes coming in Pittsburgh. Even if they miss the postseason, I don't. Wahoo Brad says, I expect the Redskins to roll the dice a lot next week. Ending the Eagles season would make this roller coaster of a season worthwhile for me. No, this wouldn't make the season for you. You much rather see the Redskins succeed than another team not. However, I know a lot of Redskins fans would be excited about the Redskins ending the Eagles season. Honestly, I would love it, but again, you know what I really ultimately want. And ending the Eagles season with a loss doesn't help that cause. So, you know, once 1 o'clock hits on Sunday, you know what I'm going to be rooting for, okay? I'm going to be rooting for the Redskins to take down the Eagles. So I can sit here and talk all the nonsense I want, but you know, at the end of the day, you know what it is I really want. Mark Wahlberg says, you watching tomorrow's Monday Night Football matchup? It may be trash, but it could be the last game in the black hole. I'm going to watch a little bit of it, but I've got to hit the sack. I've got an 8.5, 9-hour drive to Georgia on Christmas morning, so I don't think I'm going to be able to watch all of that game. I'll watch maybe the first half of it before I turn in, and we'll see what happens. Vincent Cole says, dream scenario for me would be the Seahawks playing the Rams in the playoffs. Lots of Seahawks fans really want that revenge game. You know, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. That would be interesting. I already talked about Steve Wilkes on my podcast, so if you want to know how I feel about Steve Wilkes and him potentially getting fired, I talked about it on my podcast already. Redskins fan says, Redskins will beat the Eagles next week, so just so Dan Snyder has an excuse to keep Bruce. I think he's going to keep him anyway. Reby says, Merry Christmas to you and yours, Lou. Be blessed in every way. As far as my Eagles, need a little help, but we're taking care of our own business now. I know, man, and that was a hell of a game. That was a fun game to watch, Reby, and Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. I need to check your channel. I haven't seen if you made a video of late. Normally, it shows up on my feed. But I'd love to see a video from you. I haven't heard from you in a long time. I know you've been working like crazy. That's why I haven't heard from you on my channel as much this year. But anytime I hear from you, it's always a blessing. So absolutely have a very special Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's to you. And love hearing from you. Hope to hear more from you in the near future. FBG Tony says, what coaches are getting a pink slip next Monday? Will Jay Gruden be one of them? I talked about that on my podcast. Again, check out my podcast. I've talked about all of the coaching changes that I think are going to happen. None of it has changed. All of that is still pertinent information. Talked about it on the podcast. So check out the Louie T Network podcast. Derek B says, and we've hit our mark. So I'll read these next 3 comments. 2 from Derek B, 1 from Captain Spartan, and we'll get out of here. Derek B says, the Rams, Saints, Chiefs, all the high-powered, quote-unquote, new NFL offenses have all come down to earth. No more games in the mid-40s and 50s. You knew eventually that would slow down, but those teams can still score, all right? Saints scored 31 today. So did the Chiefs. So while they have not scored 40, they're playing better teams. They're still scoring points. And the Rams, I think they scored 30-some-odd points themselves today. So they're still scoring. They're just not scoring ridiculous amounts. Captain Spartan 04 says, I don't know if I want to go to the playoffs or not. I want a chance to get a good player like Leighton Vander Esch from a year ago, but I also want to go to the playoffs. You got a chance next week. Got to win, though, first, and then you're going to need some help. We'll see what happens. Derek B says, all of the NFC teams that were either leading in the playoff picture or in the hunt won, except the sorry-ass Redskins. I hope Danny is watching. Unfortunately, I don't think he is. And on that note, I am going to bid adieu to all of you. And once again, say Merry Christmas to you and yours. Merry Christmas to all out there. Once again, I can't thank you guys enough for what you do for this channel, the support that you give me, and the energy, the time, and the resources that you devote to the Louie T Network. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So once again, thank you and Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holiday season. Enjoy all of the festivities. Enjoy all of the TV programming. We will link back up on Sunday for some NFL action in Week 17 of the National Football League. Until then, remember, I am your man, Louie T. And if it's not your man, T, it is not the best NFL coverage it could be. I'm signing off. Merry Christmas. Enjoy your holidays. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.